Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Starting Small Music Podcast. I'm your host, Justin McCormick, and today we have a very special guest. We have hit songwriter and one-third of the band, Track45, Ben Johnson. I'm really excited to have Ben on the podcast today. You've heard all of his hit songs, such as Gone by Dierks Bentley and Best Thing Since Backroads by Owen. Ben even has a cut on one of my favorite artists' records, Charlie Puth's Voice Notes album. He wrote his song Patient on that. You can hear the stories of how all these songs came to life and the story behind how Ben got to Nashville. I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you at the end. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Starting Small Music Podcast. Today we have hit songwriter and one-third of the band, Track45, the best thing since Backroads, Mr. Ben Johnson. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. So getting right into it, you grew up in Meridian, Mississippi, and you grew up with two other sisters that were musicians. What was it like growing up in a household of musicians?
Yeah, I grew up small town Mississippi, Meridian, and like you said, my two sisters, Jenna and KK, we started a band when we were, I was 13, so KK was like 7 and Jenna was maybe 14, something like that. So music's been a huge part of my life for a really long time, and it really started with my grandparents and our mom. All really love music. Our grandma taught us how to play piano. Our mom taught us how to sing harmony, and just from there, I think just the love of music was kind of built.
Now, at what age did you pick up the cello?
Ah, wow, deep cut. You've done some research.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see. So the cello. So I started playing piano when I was 6. Like I said, my grandma taught me how to play piano, and then my parents said, if you want to play another instrument, you can save up and buy it yourself. That way they knew I would really want to stick with it and learn it. So I decided I wanted to play the cello when I was 9, and I, worked a summer picking up pine cones in people's yards to save up to buy the cello. I bought a $120 cello off eBay. And so, yeah, I was 9 when I started cello. And then from there, I just started picking up different instruments. It was like guitar and man, I mean, it's all about the girls when you get to like 13, 14. So then, I was like, cello's not impressing girls like I wanted it to, so I gotta find a better instrument. So then I picked up, guitar and electric guitar and other instruments from there.
And then what age did you and your sisters kind of start gigging around Meridian? Was that in your teenage years in high school?
Yeah, so I think I was around 13 at our first gig. We joked that we started in the nursing home circuit because like we played in all the nursing homes. That's kind of how it started. Was just
I did the same thing. That's so funny.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a very captive audience, I'll say that. But it was really just started off, just try to brighten people's day, and we learned, I think, Jambalaya by Hank Williams, and the one we knew, and I knew 2 of the 3 chords, and then Jenna knew all 3 chords, so we could kind of sing it and sing harmony. So we would go around town, just anything and everything, and then from there just started touring Southeast in our teenage years, and then when I was about 18, we were playing a show somewhere in Mississippi, and a man came up to us after the show and said, "Hey, I think y'all are really good. I think y'all should move to Nashville. I think you have what it takes." And he said, "I worked in the industry for 30 years or whatever, and I've seen a lot." And it turns out he had worked with Alan Jackson and Campbell, and his name was Mark. And he kind of gave us the belief that we, could actually do it for a living, and he was pretty qualified to say that. And so owe a lot to Marty for encouraging us to move up here. But yeah, so I was 18, KK was 14, and Jenna was 19. We all moved up here together.
So you were already living in Nashville when you accepted your cello scholarship to Belmont?
No, so from when Marty told us that, y'all should give it a go in Nashville, because you got to be where the music is. That's one thing that I've learned. That was, I started looking at schools to try to I was in community college, so I started looking at school, and I saw Belmont, and I was like, there's no way I'll be able to afford Belmont.
Totally.
And so I started doing some digging, and I found out they didn't have any cello players there. So I went to them and I said, "Hey, if I, play in the orchestra, will you pay for me to go to school here?" And they said, "Yeah." So worked out.
Wow. So was it right in your freshman year that you kind of started going around the local writing scene, kind of making your first connections?
100%. Yeah. I think one thing we knew right away was that we weren't so good that other people would write our songs for us. Have to learn how to write our own songs. So we definitely started co-writing right away and figuring out what that was. We didn't even realize what it was at first, really, but we going around to writers rounds, talking to people after rounds, trying to get numbers, build our network, and really just part of the grind was we told ourselves we would write every day for 2 years, and so we did. Including Saturdays and Sundays, we would write a song every day. So I don't know how many songs that ended up being, almost 700 something songs. So we just knew, the 10,000 hour rule is that, you can't really master something until you put in the time. And so that was one of the things we tried to do as quickly as possible. And of course, all the best laid plans, then it takes longer and more work than you could ever expect. But that's something we've always really enjoyed, is the process of anything. And we like working, and we have a lot of fun. Just even when, you're writing a song and no one ever hears it, there's still a lot of joy and, fun to be had in that process.
For sure. Now, how soon after you started kind of going out and networking yourself, getting into writers groups, did you meet Ashley Gorley, who's pretty much the biggest country writer of our time?
Yeah, that's true. So it was a while. So I think the first person we met who was very instrumental in helping us out was a guy named Rutherford. And he's a fantastic writer, wrote everything from Real Good Man, Tim McGraw, to When I Get Where I'm Going for Brad Paisley. And he kind of taught us about co-writing, and that was probably the first 3-4 years was before we met Ashley. And so KK, my younger sister, had gone to a seminar at Belmont where Ashley was talking. And she came back and she was like, "Hey, you know what? I've just met this guy." We're so dumb. We didn't know who anybody was. This is some guy named Gorley. He seems like he's pretty good. And so we were like, okay. And so we ended up meeting him and playing some songs. And he was like, this is pretty good. But, I'm not really sure I'm ready to pull the trigger on it yet, and I need to hear some more. And so I said, well, if you could just agree to meet with me once every month, and just for 10 minutes, or once every other month for 10 minutes, and just tell me why my songs suck. I just knew I needed to get better. I said I would really appreciate it. And I think he sensed like I was kind of a crazy person and I wasn't going to like go away maybe. And so he agreed to do that. And that honestly changed my life. It had been probably 4 or 5 years since I moved here. And we were obviously doing the band together, but one of our goals was to all get publishing deals. And I had really been to almost every publisher at that point. I feel like I'd been to a lot of publishers and I've been turned down by pretty much everybody. And Ashley was the first person to kind of give me a chance to before I was just like, hey, I know I'm not at your level, but teach me how to get better, how to level up.
Totally.
And so I did for about a year. I would come out to his house, actually where I am right now. And I would play him songs, and I would just say, hey, tell me why this sucks. Tell me why this sucks. How can I do this better? And he would, and I grew exponentially from that process.
Wow. And fast forward to about 2018, I'm really excited to talk about this because even though I do country music, Charlie Puth is one of my favorite all-time artists. And so when I saw that you were a writer on Patient on the Voice Notes record, I'd love to hear, how did you get connected with Charlie, and how does like a Nashville writer get placed on a huge pop album like that?
Yeah. So again, like I said, I was coming out playing Ashley's songs for about a year. And after about a year, I came out and I played him songs. And he said, okay, better. These are good. And this, he said, well, play me. And I don't know why he said this. It's just one of those God things, I guess. But he said, hey, play me something that you wouldn't play me normally. I said, well, I kind of do some pop stuff too. And I said, hey, here's a song I did, whatever. And I played him Patient. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. Can you text it to me? And I texted it to him. And the next morning at about 2 a.m., I got a phone call from him, and he said, hey, I remember he said, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm sleeping, of course. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Why? He said, hey, you need to wake up. I've got Charlie Puth right here. He just recorded your song last night.
No way.
And so it ended up, Charlie heard it, fell in love with it, made it his own. And that was right after Tension had come out. So that was a pretty big deal. And that really definitely jump-started my career in a big way.
Now, I know Charlie did some early like keyboard session work in Nashville. Did you guys know each other before he started his career, or that was your first time kind of working together?
I didn't even realize he did that. No, that was our first time. He didn't know me from sliced bread. So yeah, we didn't know each other.
Well, that's awesome, man. So kind of what you're doing now, you got or You're the Best Thing Since Backroads has been tearing up the charts. I mean, it's always stuck in my head. Can you take us through like the day you wrote that, and did you know it was going to be such an electric song?
Oh man, thank you. Best Thing Since Backroads. Let's see. That was the last session I did in 2019. Wait, 2019? No, 2020, before Thanksgiving. And it was me and some of my best friends in Nashville, Hunter Phelps, Jeff Warburton, and Jordan Minton. And what had happened was Hunter and I were supposed to write, and then our write got with someone else, and our got canceled. And then Jeff and Jordan Minton were supposed to write with someone else, and their write got canceled. So we said, hey, we all have the same day free. Let's just get together and write a song all together. So it was a last minute thing, literally happened that morning. And yeah, I had the vibe going already, and I knew I wanted to do something kind of in the Fleetwood Mac, kind of older Alabama kind of sound. And honestly, it was one of the most fun writing sessions I've ever done. We wrote the song really quickly. Jordan had the title, and it was like one of those things where everybody was firing out stuff, like everybody was contributing. And we had so much fun writing it. And yeah, I think as soon as we finished it, like I remember that night, everyone was texting on the group text, like, man, we crushed it. Ben, send us the demo, because I hadn't finished the demo yet. So I finished that night, and yeah, we almost like celebrated as soon as we heard the demo, just because we knew it was something special.
Was Jake the first one you guys thought of to send it to, or did it end up just coming into his hands?
No, I have a long and illustrious history of getting Blake Shelton holds that don't work out. So that was one of them, but they don't with Blake, but end up working out with someone else. I probably named 3 other ones right now that, let's see, Michael Ray, Holy Water, that was a Blake hold. And then Hot Beer, Dylan Carmichael, that was another Blake hold that ended up being whatever. So yeah, it was a Blake hold. And then for whatever reason, he decided not to cut it. And we had a waiting list. Everyone in town kind of wanted it.
Really?
I probably shouldn't even say who else wanted it, but it was like a lot of other people wanted it. So we were pretty confident it would end up in good hands. And Jake ever since Jake had heard it, and his team at Big Loud had heard it, they said, okay, as soon as it comes off hold with Blake, if it does, we want it. And so literally the day it came off hold, it got cut.
Wow. Now, kind of going out of the timeline here, this happened before Backroads, but Give Heaven Some Hell, I think, is one of the coolest written songs like in the past couple of years. And I mean, an emotional song too, with like such a rock influence. So it's a cool combination of things. Do you remember anything about the writing of that? Who came in with that title? And is it based off a true story?
Yeah, so I agree. Give Heaven Some Hell, one of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of. Really special song. Actually, we wrote it in the studio right here. Sat on that couch.
Wow.
Keyboard. And the way that came about was Hardy, Hunter, and I were writing a song, which ended up being the first track in his album, called Truck. And we got into the end of the second verse, and someone had said, the line now is, bet there's stories about his best friends that he can barely tell, 'cause he's missing him like hell. But the original line was, but there's stories about his best friend that he can barely tell, because he's giving heaven some hell. And as soon as someone said that, we all stopped, and I was like, hey, we need to write that as a whole song, because that, I just got, like, we all got chills, like the moment that said. And so we had to write again the next day. We had to write in the book, maybe the next day or the day after. And Ashley, we pulled Ashley in because he's the GOAT. And yeah, it was really quick again. We had already sketched the song out, and wrote the whole thing in about 30 minutes, and knew it was something special. And yeah, really, really grateful to be part of that song. And also I play the dead guy in the music video, which is my acting debut, claim to fame.
Oh, wow. So kind of to close things out, I kind of like to ask everybody what their advice is to be to someone that wants to be where you are, or even to your younger self. What's your advice to someone that wants to be a hit songwriter and artist in the music industry?
And there's a lot of things I could say. I think first of all, you have to love the process, because if you're working for results, the results may come or they may not. This industry is so crazy, and it's so difficult. You're up against not just everyone else in Nashville who has a guitar and is trying to do it, but everyone in the world who can, has a phone and a computer and can record a song. You're competing against so many people. But if you don't love the process, you'll burn out really quick. So Make sure you enjoy what you're doing. Keep your head down. In the comparison game to myself, I would say, as a younger myself, I would say, it's so easy to get lost in seeing what somebody's doing over there on the left, somebody's doing over there on the right. But it's important not to really try to compare yourself. Be happy for other people's success, and don't get discouraged, when you're not moving at the same pace as someone else.
Well, guys, there you have it. My conversation with Ben Johnson. Ben, thank you again so much for joining the show. I had a great time talking with you. Everyone go follow him on Instagram at TheOnlyBenJohnson2. And make sure to come back next week to hear my conversation with Nathan Barlow, multi-instrumentalist for Keith Urban and the creator of The Phantom. I want to give TBD Coffee Co. a big thank you for being the official coffee of Starting Small Music. Go check them out at tbdcoffeeco.com. Check out Starting Small Music on YouTube to see all the video content from our interviews. And give Starting Small Music a follow on Instagram at Starting Small Music, and let us know who you'd like to hear on the podcast next. And remember, everyone starts small.